Today, you will find out why McQueen was imprisoned, who his mistress was, whether it is true that he and Blow had a relationship, let alone children, even though he was openly gay, whether it is true that he forbade Victoria Beckham to wear his clothes, who were his lovers, and why he died and who might have been behind it. You will learn all this in our video ahead. Lee Alexander McQueen, known as Alexander McQueen, was born on March 17, 1969 in London, England. He was the youngest child in a family where his father worked as a taxi driver, and his mother was a social studies teacher and genealogist. From an early age, McQueen showed an interest in fashion and design. At the age of 16, McQueen left school and started working on Savile Row, including at the Anderson and Shepard Atelier, where he made suits for such famous people as Mikhail Gorbachev and Prince Charles. Later, he worked in theater costume shops and with Japanese designer Koji Tatsun in London, as well as with Romeo Gigli in Italy. Upon returning to London, McQueen entered Central St. Martin's College of Fashion, graduating in 1992 with his graduation collection, Jack the Ripper Stalks His Victims, 1992. This was his final work at Central St. Martin's, and it already showed that McQueen would not create pretty things just for the sake of commerce. He was interested in provocation, psychology, darkness. And this collection, inspired by the story of Jack the Ripper, a serial killer from Victorian London, became an application for a loud and scandalous career. His graduation collection caught the attention of stylist Isabella Blow, who purchased the entire collection and became his mentor. Blow played a key role in McQueen's development as a designer, helping him to grow in the fashion industry. Blow attends McQueen's graduation show at Central St. Martin's and literally falls in love with his work. She buys the entire collection for £5,000 on an installment plan because she didn't even have that kind of money at the time. She doesn't just buy things, she buys its potential and puts her whole soul into it. Rebranding, she was the one who convinced him to use the name Alexander instead of Lee to make it sound more aristocratic and fashionable. She introduced him to the right people in the fashion industry. She got him noticed at Givenchy. She often arranged interviews and presentations for him, helped him financially, gave him fabrics, and introduced him to the aristocracy and bohemians of London. At the peak of their creative union in the mid-1990s, gossip began to circulate that Isabella and McQueen had more than just a professional relationship. Some fashion insiders even hinted that they had been having an affair for several years, despite the fact that McQueen openly identified as gay. There's always something mysterious about them. It was an obsession, yes, but not always platonic, according to one of the Givenchy employees. The wildest version is the gossip that they might have had a child, which they allegedly gave to another family to raise, so as not to undermine their reputation. There is no confirmation of this information. No photos, no documents, but this story has long been circulating on the sidelines of the industry. McQueen himself has never commented on these rumors. Blow was also silent. Their relationship cracked when McQueen signed a contract with Givenchy without Blow's involvement, and she took it as a betrayal. She had been investing in him for many years, but when the moment of a big breakthrough came, she was allegedly pushed aside. This breakup hit Isabella hard, and she later admitted that it was one of the reasons for her prolonged depression. In 2007, she committed suicide by taking poison. McQueen was devastated. At her funeral, he wore a black suit with a red poppy in his buttonhole, the only bright thing in her style. In 1996, McQueen was appointed chief designer of the French fashion house Givenchy, replacing John Galliano. His first collection for Givenchy received controversial reviews, and the designer himself called it crap. However, over time, he adapted his style to the requirements of haute couture while maintaining his individuality. One of McQueen's most controversial collections was Highland Rape in 1995, which drew accusations of misogyny. In fact, the collection was dedicated to the ethnic cleansing carried out by British troops in Scotland in the 18th and 19th centuries. His shows were often theatrical and provocative, which cemented his reputation as the enfant terrible of fashion. Now, I would like to talk about his arrest. According to legend, it happened in the late 1990s. Allegedly, after presenting one of his most provocative collections, which featured fake blood, torn dresses, and the image of a victim of violence, McQueen threw a private party in a basement in Soho. There were said to be the elite from hell there: fashion models, artists, fetishists, editors from Vogue, and some very strange characters. And somewhere between the drugs, screaming, and champagne, one of the guests allegedly insulted McQueen, and it ended in a knife fight. The body was rumored to have been taken out the back door in a garbage bag, and McQueen was arrested in his morning robe as he slept after the party. This story made the rounds of several tabloids and anonymous forums in the noughties, and some even claimed that this arrest was covered up because the fashion industry covered it up. But the truth is much simpler and much funnier. This story is a fantasy that lives its life in glossy magazines, gossip, and telegram channels. In fact, there was no arrest for the murder. No protocols, no photos, no court cases. So where did this nonsense come from? Some media researchers believe that people simply confused McQueen the designer with actor Steve McQueen. Yes, Steve McQueen is a Hollywood legend who was actually arrested in 1972 in Anchorage, Alaska, when he was caught for illegal acts of a sexual nature in an Oldsmobile Toronado. The incident happened in the city center, and the press of that era made a big deal of it. McQueen was known for his blunt statements and his dislike of certain celebrities. In particular, he allegedly forbade Victoria Beckham to wear his clothes, believing that she had nothing to do with fashion. Instead, he maintained a close relationship with model Kate Moss, even publicly expressing support for her during her drug scandal. His personal life was full of challenges. McQueen spoke openly about his homosexuality and struggled with depression. George Michael. Friendship? With a flair? It is known that McQueen was close to George Michael. They often hung out together in London, both belonging to the nightlife elite, and they were united not only by music and fashion, but also by mutual interest. Gossip in the London club scene claimed that there was more than just an acquaintance between them. They were spotted together at private parties where journalists often accidentally lost their camera phones. Nothing has been officially confirmed, but scene insiders say that they had an affair that didn't last long, but it was very passionate. Is Rupert Everett an actor with secret influence? There is evidence that McQueen had a short-lived affair in the 90s with Rupert Everett, a British film star, openly gay, and, incidentally, a man with very eccentric taste. Tom Ford, flirtation or professional tension? Oh, it was very interesting. McQueen and Ford often exchanged public barbs, but at the same time, they often appeared in the same circles. It was rumored that there was a sexual interest between them, but with a large dose of competition and mutual dislike. McQueen allegedly once said, "Tom wants me, but he can't stand me." Ford responded, "Lee McQueen is a genius, but he's probably even worse in bed than he is in PR." Whether this was true or not is unknown, but the tension between them in the fashion world was palpable. After the death of his close friend Isabella Blow in 2007, his condition worsened. On February 11, 2010, a few days after his mother's death, McQueen committed suicide, the official version of the death. The police confirmed that it was a suicide. Cocaine, sleeping pills, tranquilizers, and alcohol were found in his blood. During the interrogation, his friends admitted that he had been deeply depressed in recent months, could not survive the death of his mother, was exhausted by his work. He could not feel alive without creative pain. But the world did not believe it, and versions appeared. Version 1. The Masonic Trail. One of the wildest theories promoted by conspiracy theorists is that McQueen knew too much about the dark side of the fashion industry, including Version 2, victim of psychological hacking. This version is supported by McQueen's close friends. It does not contain mysticism, but it is very human. He lost his mother, who was his only support in the world. He had a creative burnout. Version 3, The Dying Show. Many people pay attention to how aesthetically pleasing his death looked. Alexander McQueen left behind more than just a brand. He left behind a myth. The myth of a man who sought beauty through pain, who hated the system but lived in its heart. His death was both the end of an era and a new beginning for many designers who dared to be brave. And as he himself said, "There is no better designer than nature." I just try to imitate the madness.